Hello everyone, another partnership chat. Stefan here from Loncom Consulting, and I brought our partner GetBetter and Rich from GetBetter. So Rich, thank you very much for having the time to do this recording, and please introduce yourself and GetBetter.
Hey, no problem. So I'm Rich Evans. GetBetter, we are a predominantly Klaviyo email marketing agency. About 90% of what we do is Klaviyo, and we serve e-commerce brands with their Klaviyo needs and support across the globe.
Okay, one thing that I did pick, and I don't know whether you want to talk maybe a little bit more about that now, but you said predominantly Klaviyo. What does that really mean?
Well, up until, look, I'm here branded, and up until probably the last 2 months, we would have been exclusively Klaviyo. But recently, there are other products coming to market and developing that are challenging Klaviyo's throne. So we are in the process of the first couple of Yotpo migrations to their email platform. And I think with our growth as well, like, you know, we used to be much more diverse in terms of what we were doing. We were working on HubSpot. We were writing content for blogs as well as emails and things. And the best thing I ever did was drilling down and being very specific and just specializing in Klaviyo. As we grow and as the industry develops, I think now was the time to try a couple of other platforms. So that's why I say predominantly Klaviyo.
Okay, I like it. We're going to go into later on a little bit about what the service really is and so on. So I'm going to question you more on that side. But before we go into the business area, I'm interested in your journey. I always talk in these partnership chats that how you end up in e-commerce, nobody bloody knows. And that's, I think, the reality. My background is finance, and then all of a sudden into e-com, which I think predominantly is the one. But because e-commerce is a combination of so many different industries, in my opinion, into one, I'm always interested to know about the journey to ecom. So what's yours?
Wow, how long have you got? So I think my journey into ecom, the most recent sort of segue into ecom was lockdown. I was working as a consultant and specializing in community management. And sort of, for example, I was working on a project where Yo Sushi were rebranding to Yo, and was working on how their community management worked in terms of how they interacted with people, and then did a piece of work on using the language that their users used with them to shape the tone of voice that Yo used in their sort of communications. So I was doing some work like that. I'd previously co-founded another agency that specialized in social and community management. And when exiting that, which was, a whole mental health story, which is a whole different part of the journey, I guess, I ended up freelancing. But then COVID hit. And so these brands, there was a brewery, there was Yo, there was a pie manufacturer, all of these brands that I would been helping drive consumers to out-of-home sales suddenly had a massive amount of perishable stock and nowhere to sell it. So used what I did know about ecom. I can't sort of describe myself as a broad brush marketeer up until about 4 or 5 years ago, to build some quick, dirty ecom presences or tidy some ecom presences up and try and get food into people's homes, because that was the mission in those early lockdowns. I remember having, getting text the number to a guy. I WhatsApped him, are you the fruit and veg man? He said, yeah, what do you need? I said, anything. He said, open your garage, I'll be there in 20 minutes, leave £20 in an envelope, and just left stuff on the doorstep. And that was how it was. So we were sending pies into people's homes, beer and things. And at that point, discovered Klaviyo. And it was a great tool for what I thought was probably just going to be a project, a COVID thing. But then those brands, as we kind of came out of the first and second and third lockdowns, we didn't see the downturn we were expecting. And I was really enjoying what we were doing. So relatively young as an ecom professional, I guess. And like with many people, lockdown really shaped that journey for me. As time went on, I got more and more obsessed with Klaviyo, and mostly how underutilized it was in most instances. There was a big trend of where people had Klaviyo because their Shopify company or developer had tagged it onto a build for them. but they didn't really know how to use it or what they were doing. So yeah, one thing led to another, and here we are, however many years later, with 14 of us and doing a lot of ecom for a lot of brands.
Yeah. Okay. So what you reminded me here is you exactly said what the problem is that we find in the industry, that people buy into a system, get a system, and then don't use it. So I love that you mentioned that, and we are big advocates on that from our side, of course, being the ERP, inventory management systems, data analytics platforms, or anything of that sort. People buy it, they buy more into a salesperson or somebody, I don't know, John from the pub, recommended it to them, but do they really have to grasp it to utilize it to its full strength? Or they buy it for one functionality, but don't buy it for this pool of functionality that it offers. So one question for you, is Get Better than a COVID baby?
Yeah, I mean, this entire Rich Evans is a COVID baby. I went into COVID in a marriage and off the back of some serious mental and physical health issues, and kind of came out of it separated for the best, like best relationship with my ex-wife, and my kids are great. And so, but with this brand new start, this new sort of line of skills, this new experience that I built up in ecom. So yeah, I'd say Rich Evans, as I sit here, is a COVID baby in himself.
There you go. There you go. There's a positive of COVID. It wasn't all negative. People transformed even on a different level than only just business and so on and so forth. So, okay. What I'm interested now to ask you is also, where are you currently with Get Better? You said 14 people right now. I know that you are growing. You're basically everywhere on LinkedIn. Everybody knows about Rich Evans. That's for sure, especially in our community, I would say. So where are you currently in the journey with Get Better? And what are some of the challenges that you're currently facing?
I mean, just on a real wave, I would say. I mean, it's a myth that I'm everywhere and really good at LinkedIn. If you nail it down and look at my profile, I post sparingly. But when I do travel to somewhere, I travel with purpose. I'm in North Devon, so it's not easy to get anywhere. So if I'm going to go to an event, then I'm going to tag on as many things around that event and just make that trip as purposeful as possible. Because UK train travel isn't cheap. So yeah, I think that we won a very local award, and I got sort of shuffled onto stage in front of a mic and was asked to say a few words. I think what I described it as is really, we're a people first agency, and we are fundamentally built on good people and good culture and things. And the way I describe it is, those guys are the sort of wind in the sails, and I'm just steering the ship. I've got a sleeve full of experiences and things that, maybe didn't go so well, but I wouldn't change them for the world, because they've helped shape me who I am now. And so I'm able to make sure that we miss some of the icebergs that other agencies and my previous agency hit, in terms of structure and margin and cash and all of those sorts of things. So, for a guy that sat in this very room 3 years ago and told his accountant he never wanted to employ people again, to be here with 14 of us is quite the plot twist. But, I'm enjoying every minute. I thoroughly enjoy the people that I come to work with. Seeing them develop and turn into I've got a senior leadership team now of people that have been here from nearly the start, and other sort of leaders and stuff developing in terms of middle management. And yeah, I think the challenges we face at the moment, we've got an excellent partner network. I've never really been a very good salesman, but I'm a fundamentally good person, I like to think.
You are.
And so I think, people buy from people is the truest sort of, the only probably thing I took away from any sales training that I did back in the day when I was in telesales. And so, when other people were, hitting all the KPIs of 80 calls a day and, 5 appointments booked, I'd speak to 2 people a day, but have really good, long, meaningful conversations. And generally found that even if I didn't sell to that person, they'd drop me an email or an introduction to someone else that would. And so that's kind of what I've taken from here, really. And so, yeah, we are built on partners. I think the challenges I face at the moment are, as we've grown, I'm less and less involved in the delivery on every single client. And so it's making sure that we don't hit that agency hurdle of, it's fine bringing in the clients, but then failing on delivery. So retention is still really, really good at the moment, really positive, but that don't want to rest on our laurels. And I think it's just that good stress of, as I describe it, as being resourced and having enough people to do the amount of work that's coming in.
Yeah.
Whilst maintaining everything that we fundamentally believe in about people first and mental health and good agency culture. But I much prefer that stress to the other one of, having enough work to justify the people. So yeah, riding a wave, I would say at the moment, and just about staying aboard.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's very interesting. I would also say on that side is you should never problems. These are good problems. The bad problems is, when sales are not happening. But then also I think for us small businesses, it's very difficult to juggle everything. And you're all of a sudden you have, the sales and the operations and the people and the marketing and so on. And we do feel overwhelmed all the time. I think that's just the reality. It doesn't matter even if it's a quiet period, our kind of inside is going to come out and say, you need to do something. You need to work on that brochure because, it needs redoing because I haven't touched it in a year, or I need to work on my website and things like that and so on. So finding that inner peace, I think it's quite difficult when you're a small business owner because constantly something is happening. So yeah, okay. What I'm interested now coming back onto GetBetter as well is what's your main selling point? I mean, there's a ton of Klaviyo agencies out there, let's face it. And just by Googling it, you're going to get, sponsored ads. You're going to get a lot of Insta people saying, we can do your Klaviyo and so on and so forth. So what makes GetBetter so special?
Yeah, I mean, we are lucky enough. My attention was drawn to our entry on the Klaviyo directory the other day, which is basic to say the least. And so, that's on my Asana now as a task to get sorted. But we rarely find ourselves in like a compare and contrast sort of mode. We're not in the Google searches and things because, again, 95% of our work, I would say, comes from word of mouth or partners. So I suppose that's the first thing is we really go above and beyond and personally me at the moment. So this has become my sort of one and main function now in the business, which is to handle those introductions and really nurture and take care of them. So I suppose the first thing that separates us from other agencies is we'll talk to anyone that's on Klaviyo. So there's no like ICP that you've got to go and find and check if it's, you're referring someone to us that we want to be referred to. We'll talk to anyone. Now I've done an audit feedback for a brand doing circa £2 million a month. And I've done an audit feedback for a coffee brand that was doing £350 a month in sales in the last week, but they both get very similar levels of service from us. So it's a partner introduction. We'll have a call, we'll get access. And then I suppose that's then where the second unique selling point and where, I kind of like partnerships with people like you is our audits. So what we don't invest into big marketing spends and PPC and stuff, we invest into time spent auditing accounts. And for our partner introductions, we'll do that for free. Now, same as like the first sort of port of call with you and the first entry point is a bit of a tech stack audit. So we've mentioned tech stack, everyone using all of these apps. You go into any sort of Shopify store and there's just a graveyard of apps where the usage is nil, but there's just still on there from, different marketing managers or ecom people or free trials and things like that. So, we go into Klaviyo with a sort of frame of mind of we're going to come and find some quick wins, some medium term sort of strategies that you could alter, and then some longer term pieces, and then give them to you. So no obligation, no pitch. So it's a really nice introduction for a partner to know that we're kind of taking that brand and that relationship, because when you introduce people, it's an extension of your reputation.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's where we've kind of found a really sweet spot. The other thing is we don't do contracts. So none of our clients are tied into any sort of minimum term. Everyone rolls monthly, which I think is, if I'm completely honest with you, and like, just between me and you here, is psychologically because I can't bear to think of the idea of having to sit down with someone every 11 months and renew a contract. It's just fundamental. I'm not big on sales. I'd rather just let our work do the talking and continue to work together until there's a problem on either side. But I think what that does from a sort of psychological point of view is it makes the risk and makes the roll of the dice a lot less risky for the brand. We also pride ourselves on being a sort of flexible agency and flexing with brands as their year flexes. Q4, it makes it pretty hot and heavy, but there's a whole like industry of brands where their peak isn't Q4 at all. In fact, they almost batten down the hatches and wait for Q1 because that's what they're all about. And then there's others where their peaks are the summer. So we'll try and either squirrel away hours or flex retainers so that they work with the cash flow of the brand that we're working with. So yeah, I think kind of molding around brands, and rather than just having our agenda and fixed retainers all year round would be great for the accounts, but not really for the clients. And I believe they should come first.
Yeah, I think also, so we do the same thing. Monthly rolling, you don't like us, you get rid of us, right? So that's one thing. We also do on the auditing side of things, like data can be a mess, especially big e-commerce sites, legacy ones and so on. Data audit's completely for free. What I find is flexibility is so important in e-commerce, because comparison to other industries that are maybe older or that have different ways working, if you're not flexible in e-commerce with your agents, you're not going to be flexible with your internal operations as a brand. And how are you then going to be flexible with your customers that require that flexibility as the digital environment and the tech environment is changing so often? Like every single minute there is something new. And e-commerce, what is now, is not going to be in a year, in 5 years. It's going to be a different story. But I also think, and I don't know whether you would agree on that, I would love to hear your thoughts, is keeps us going, that monthly rolling, because you're never going to then stagnate and you're never going to, be comfortable in that chair. You will always have that little drive, like, what if there is 2 more, So me as a young also business owner, and Loncom being only 3 years old, I think that also pushes me, because it's always saying, every month we have to prove our value and we have to then also work on the sales in order to expand on that side. Do you think that's a positive or a negative, that there is that constant push behind you?
I mean, I'm crippled with imposter syndrome. So fundamentally, there is a chimp in my brain that is constantly trying to convince me that everyone thinks I'm a piece of shit. So all my clients are going to leave me, all my staff are going to leave me. And for a long time, that like debilitated me. Like it was paralyzing. It stopped me from, speaking to small rooms of people or speaking to you on a call or sort of things. And then I read a book called The Chimp Paradox, and it kind of helped me understand I'm never going to defeat that voice. Like it's there, it's a part of me. And fundamentally, it's there to protect me from danger. And so, but I can build a relationship with it. And so I kind of built a relationship with my imposter syndrome, which now means that I do still think that everyone thinks I'm a piece of shit, and all my clients, and that I'm going to be a fraud, didn't go to university, or I've only been working in ecom for 4 years, or whatever it's going to be, that means that everybody's just going to leave. But it's that part of me that makes me really good at what I do, because like you say, it makes me really, really conscious of each of the team members and, where they're at in life and how I can help them get to the next point and stuff, and how I can help them develop. Every client that I speak to, I try not to hover and helicopter manage and things, but I do like to sort of go in and just make sure that promise that I made to that client, we're delivering on and things. And so, yeah, I think fundamentally it can be exhausting, but yeah, it absolutely, whether we'd ever be suitable for acquisition and things without contracts and security and things in place, I don't know, and founder dependency and things like that, but not really thinking about those things at the moment because I'm enjoying stuff too much. So whether I'll be able to maintain it or whether the business will outgrow that and, I'll have to put something in place, who knows? But I hope not.
Yeah. Well, I'm enjoying the flexibility right now. Now, love to hear that. I want to talk a little bit also about our partnership. So I remember it was eCom Collab Club Manchester. You were a speaker. basically came up to me and said, let's grab a coffee. We are on in this community together kind of constantly involved in it in our own ways to try to improve it, to try to build it out just together. And I think pretty similar mentality of how networking, how communities can build certain things. So from my side, and as I said, with every partner that we do have, a no-brainer, because I was lucky that I could have handpicked on who I want to kind of work with. And for email marketing, you're definitely the one when it comes to that. So I would absolutely think that email marketing and data go well together. You can't go without those two. And I know how much we are reliant on what email marketers kind of bring to us. So yeah, a good partnership incoming, I would say.
Yeah, and look, I think it's typical of the partnerships that I love. It's not built on commercial arrangements and rev shares and things like that. It's built on just a meeting of minds and having very similar approaches. So different services, but similar sort of morals and the way that we go about things. I think for us, having a partner that we can refer anything that gets beyond our sort of comfort zone when it comes to data. So, we're more than happy with a migration from MailChimp to Klaviyo, or Klaviyo to Yotpo, or vice versa, because, we've done them time and time again. We know what we're doing. When it gets to, like you say, like legacy sites and, we've got this data here, but there's gray areas and stuff, being able to just sort of say, as a specialist agency, we say no a lot to things. And so being able to say, look, we can't do this, but we know a man, or we know a man with a group of people behind him that can, is really, really handy for us. Yeah. And just, I think it not being like a pressure cooker relationship, like there's not, we don't need to speak or see each other every sort of week or month, know that each other are there. And I think, bringing like-minded people together, as we've done on one specific event down here in the Southwest, and we're in rooms with, is sometimes the gentlest and nicest way to do this. I know that we've got a brand that we've done a lot of work with that's really now interested in you, and it didn't really have to. There was no real pitch, there was no real introduction. It was just, let's put you in the same room and sort of introduce you and let it happen organically. So yeah, it's key. It's this sort of standard partnerships that I like.
I think for me is, when looking into partnership, is, what is the niche or what is the quality of service? Because in reality, yes, it's great. We need to create a relationship. Business owners, partnership managers need to have that relationship between each other. But in its core, you need to deliver. You need to be able to have the good service that you are able to sell to your client base as well, if there's that. And you also need to, in a way, have that good conversations, good opportunity to look at, and very much openness. That's what I would say about the partnership. And I'm very also, just based on those events, I think the future of events outside of London, there is definitely room to do that. I think we've proven that now what, a month ago or something like that there is definitely demand, and building up on top of that, I think is going to be a core of that partnership that we are creating here, and building also sometime, not everybody has to pay £250 return ticket to London and back, so that's what I would say, and I'm very much looking forward to that. We're going to wrap it up very quickly, but I have 3 quick questions for you, and we're going to go through. You can talk about anything. You can talk about personal life, you can talk about business, you can talk about anything you want. So the first one goes, if you had a magic wand, what would you change?
I mean, we've mentioned it twice now, but the UK train fares, or just give me a season ticket option, or just something, anything to make it more palatable to get to London and back.
Love it. I saw my budget for last year and how much I spent on train tickets to London. I don't want to tell you the figure. It's a couple of salaries, I would tell you.
I mean, I put a budget in place for the first time this year. I've had to grow up, but I really did pick numbers out of the air, I guess, but actually within, fractions of a percent on a lot of the lines. But the national travel line just, is out of control. And it's wild, it's crazy. And I see a lot of people getting very upset about it, but what are we going to do?
Yeah, exactly. Not much we can. Second one is, coolest projects you ever worked on?
I'm gonna cop out here from Klaviyo and brands because all of my brands are my favorite brands. But I'm gonna go.
Love it.
I'm gonna go with Ecom Collab Club. Now, it's a stretch to say that I've worked on it because I have just been a willing volunteer and things, and like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears goes into that thing. And Adam and Peter have really done all the work. But having, my first real dip into the community and London for a long time, first ever into ecom was when Adam pulled me into the hot seat, and this sort of chubby, bearded, tattooed guy that had never even been to an ecom collab club in London sat in the chair next to Bob, or Peter as others know him, and was just told to be honest and brutal. And like I talked to Adam about on a couple of calls, more on like the mental health side of owning an agency, and then just I've never felt such a sense of belonging in a community, and really don't know if I'd have personally developed or if the business would have developed or if we'd be here now talking about the positive things that we have been had it not been for Ecom Collab Club. So now finding myself in a position where I'm drafted in to co-host and stuff and feel a real part of something quite special, that's by far and away the coolest project I've ever been involved with.
That cinema every second Wednesday of the month feels like home, doesn't it? That early morning, So yeah, I can definitely vouch for that one. The last one that I have for you is what's hot and what's not.
What's hot, I would say, like community and sort of reciprocal partnerships. In that, what is not hot is rev share and cold emails 12 times a day with, we can give you 50% of everything. Like the only people that that's hurting are the clients, like all of this rev share that's being built into things. So rev share isn't making anyone rich, and it is harming brands at a time where I feel like brands need as much help as they can get with their margins and their overheads. So I'd much rather just build a community and have reciprocal partnerships and stuff than that.
I mean, don't forget about LinkedIn bots. This morning I had a LinkedIn message in English. When I opened it up and checked out the profile, the person was from Croatia. And I'm like, if you approached me in Croatia and you would have a call, because I always like to help my people there from back home. But now, because I know this is a bot, thank you.
Some of the cold emails, like the depths of the LinkedIn profile that they go to, like one of them referenced the high school that I went at, which was not a happy time for me. So that's really not a good in. And yeah, and like the LinkedIn bot comments, if you ever see now, I think what LinkedIn needs is a robot reaction, because I will tend to respond to, sometimes I'll get it wrong and it will cause confusion, but yeah, I reply to a lot of bot comments with a robot.
Yeah, nice. Well, Rich, thank you very much for your time then, and I'll call this partnership with GetBetter and Rich close. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me, Stefan. It's been a pleasure.